Well, our message is that really Australia should be suspending its military cooperation with Myanmar. We were deeply concerned that that ongoing cooperation is being used to justify and legitimise a military that has been involved in very grave abuses. And we were particularly concerned to see photographs emerge of a meeting between Australia's ambassador to Myanmar and the Commander-in-Chief, Min Aung Hlaing. And he's someone who should really be indicted for his role in mass atrocities. He's not someone who Australia's diplomats should be taking photos and exchanging presents with.
What specifically has Myanmar's Commander-in-Chief been accused of when it comes to the treatment of the Rohingya?
Well, there was a UN fact-finding mission report on the ethnic cleansing campaign, and they basically, in that report, they said that Min Aung Hlaing and 6 other generals should be subjected to targeted sanctions because of their role in orchestrating a campaign with genocidal intent. Now, that campaign involved mass killings, gang rape, arson. It drove 750,000 people into neighbouring Bangladesh, where they remain, and it is now the subject of an International Court of Justice case on genocide, which recently made a ruling urging Myanmar to extend protection to the Rohingya. So I think there's real questions about why an Australian diplomat would want to be photographed with someone who really should be in the dock for mass atrocities.
And Elaine, what are you urging Australia do instead with regards to its military ties with Myanmar?
Well, we would like Australia to suspend its military ties with Myanmar. This would be in line with steps that have been taken by the US, the UK, a number of other allies. The training is not a huge amount. Apparently it focuses on peacekeeping, English language lessons, international humanitarian law training. But the UN isn't even accepting any Myanmar peacekeepers. It withdrew the last peacekeepers last year because of human rights concerns. So really training Myanmar soldiers to be peacekeepers is giving them a legitimacy that they don't deserve. And so we would call on the Australian government to suspend all military ties until there is genuine progress on accountability for the abuses that the Rohingya have suffered.
So even providing assistance in non-combat roles just isn't acceptable at all?
No, I think it's really, it's not acceptable, and I think it is giving them a legitimacy that they don't deserve. And, it's really giving a propaganda coup to Min Aung Hlaing. He's someone that the US government has targeted sanctions against. That means that he can't travel to the United States. This is something that the UN has recommended, and Australia should be sanctioning him instead of, posing for photographs and having meetings with him.
And this applies not only to Australia, but other Western countries which still engage with the Myanmar military?
Well, yes. A number of countries do, but the US, the UK have suspended military ties. And, I think that this should be the direction that Australia should be following. If you look at this campaign against the Rohingya, it is definitely, of a scale and severity, I think, that is quite unprecedented in these current times. And there has been no real accountability. This happened in August 2017, and still Rohingyas are suffering in Bangladesh because there is no accountability for these abuses. Rohingya are still not recognised as citizens. The ones who remain in Myanmar, indeed, are trapped in camps. They don't have freedom of movement. So really, I think the Australian government needs to look at what the International Court of Justice has said and really throw their weight behind those decisions, and should be using every opportunity to pressure the Myanmar military and to hold the Myanmar military to account, rather than taking steps that really bolster the legitimacy of a military that has been involved in such mass abuses.
Well, just lastly, why do you think Australia has yet to follow in the footsteps of the US, Britain, the EU, France and Canada, as you mentioned, in cutting ties with the Myanmar military?
Well, look, Australia did sanction the 5 other generals named in the UN fact-finding missions report. I think the reason why they didn't sanction Min Aung Hlaing was really for political reasons. I think the Australian government probably thinks that continued engagement with the Myanmar military is a way of, addressing these concerns. But, it's been, nearly 3 years since those atrocities took place, and we haven't seen any progress from that continuing engagement. So I think the government really needs to think about that and think about, are there ways in which that engagement is actually doing more harm? Because certainly I think any Rohingya anywhere in the world who would see those photographs would be, quite appalled And, I think the Australian government needs to be crystal clear about the position that it takes, that this is a military that has been engaged in mass atrocities. The UN has found that there is international community action on that, and that, Australia is going to fall into line with other governments and not undermine the efforts of the US and other governments to have targeted sanctions against the commander-in-chief of the military.
Elaine Pearson from Human Rights Watch, thank you so much.
Thank you.